She was only 6 years old when her stepmother dragged her onto that rotting platform in the old cattle barn. Beside her, her twin sister trembled silently, too young to understand that a price was being put on their lives. The crowd stood still. No one moved. No one dared until a man with nothing left but his name and a broken heart stepped forward and altered the course of all their lives. The barn still reeked faintly of livestock, although no animal had passed through in years. Dust drifted in golden beams through the gaps in the warped roof. Rusted cattle gates had been shoved aside to clear a space for what now passed as a stage. And on the last Saturday of every month, it wasn't cattle that were sold but people. Children, mostly. Jonas Weller stood near the back, tall and slouched in his faded flannel shirt. His calloused hands rested on the shoulders of his 10-year-old son, Miles. The boy's milky blue eyes, clouded by congenital blindness, moved toward the stage as though they could see it. His hearing had dulled over the years, too. Jonas had to speak near his left ear for him to understand anything. Tonight, though, Jonas said nothing, and the silence between them weighed heavier than it should have. He shouldn't have come. Every instinct screamed at him to leave. But then the girls appeared. They were small, identical, 6 years old, maybe 7, both barefoot, both bruised, but not the same. One stood straight, eyes wary but proud. The other clung to her sister's sleeve, her bottom lip trembling. Their stepmother, a thin, sharp-faced woman with a cigarette dangling from her mouth, reeked of stale gin. She shoved the twins into the spotlight. "This here's a 2-for-1, she barked, waving the cigarette like a wand. "Good girls. Know how to clean, cook, stay quiet. Reiziji, inraichi." Starting bid, 200. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Men shifted. A woman in a thick coat clutched her purse tighter. Jonas felt a cold fury unraveling in his gut. The girls didn't flinch at the yelling. That was the worst part. They were used to it. The woman sneered again. "No taqueros? Fine. 150. They're quiet. They know fear. Don't cry no more." That's rare. Jonas didn't plan this. He hadn't come here with any purpose other than to deliver a busted generator to the barn owner. But something about the taller twins' hollow stare and the way she wrapped her arm around her sister like a shielda couldn't look away. $78, Jonas said suddenly. And 3 cents. The barn fell silent. The woman on stage narrowed her eyes. "What? That's what I have," Jonas replied. "You want them to go to someone who won't hurt them? Someone who'll feed them and give them a roof, then that's what I can offer." The woman scoffed. $78? For 2 mouths to feed. "I'm not buying mouths," Jonas said calmly. "I'm giving a home." He stepped forward, pulled out his old leather wallet, and placed the crumpled bills and coins into the hand of the man running the auction. The clinking coins rang out louder than they should have. Then a voice came from the shadows, smooth, female, composed. "I'll cover the rest." Everyone turned. At the top of the staircase stood a woman in a long coat and a wide-brimmed hat. Her face was mostly hidden, and her gloved hand held an envelope she passed wordlessly to the auctioneer. Then she turned and walked out, her boots tapping softly against the wood. She didn't look back. Jonas bent to the girls. "I'm Jonas," he said gently. "This is Miles. You're safe now. Understand?" The older twin nodded faintly. They stepped off the platform, still gripping each other's hands as if nothing else in the world existed. They rode home in Jonas's rusted-out pickup truck beneath a sky beginning to snow. Miles sat in the front seat, while the twins, wrapped in the only spare jackets Jonas owned, huddled quietly in the back. The younger sister fell asleep on the other's shoulder. The older one stared out the window, hollow and silent. "What are your names?" Jonas asked gently. "Ada," the older whispered. "She's Elise." "Those are beautiful names," he said softly. "You girls hungry?" They didn't answer, but their silence spoke volumes. When they arrived at the cabin, Jonas flipped on the old overhead light. The space was small, just 2 rooms, but clean. A stove that hiccuped on cold mornings, a fireplace that struggled to stay lit, and one beat-up pull-out couch. "You can sleep here tonight," he said, setting blankets on the couch. "They're clean. I'll make something warm. Ada didn't move. Her fingers touched the couch tentatively, as if afraid it would vanish. Jonas crouched beside her. You don't owe me anything, he said. You're just home now? That's it. She didn't reply. But as he turned away, he noticed she gently laid Elise down and tucked the blanket around her shoulders. That night, snow fell in sheets. Jonas sat by the fireplace long after the kids were asleep. He thought about the woman from the auction. Who was she? Why him? But those were questions for another day. For now, 3 children were safe under his roof. By morning, the cold had settled deep into the walls. The stove creaked to life, reluctantly coughing up flames. Jonas stirred from his recliner, blankets sliding off his chest. The living room was quiet, peaceful. Not empty, but full of something delicate, like the first breath of spring. Miles sat cross-legged on the rug, fingers tracing his broken talking storybook. The batteries had died long ago, but he turned the pages anyway, touching the braille like it still spoke to him. Morning, buddy, Jonas whispered. Sleep okay? A nod. You remember the girls? Another nod, a little quicker. They're going to stay a while. We help them. They help us. That okay with you? Miles's hand found Jonas's and held it. No more answer was needed. Jonas made oatmeal 4 bowls for cups and an extra spoon for good measure. When the girls awoke, Ada helped Elise sit up, guiding her like someone twice her age. Elise stared at the food suspiciously. We don't got to clean something first? She asked softly. Nope, Jonas said. Just eat. Ada examined the mismatched spoons. They don't match. Not even close, Jonas said, smiling. Miles sat silently, hands hovering above the heat of his bowl. As they ate, Miles tapped the table. 2 quick taps, then 3. Ada paused. He's counting, she said quietly. 1 tap means yes. 2 means no. 3 means I don't know. Jonas looked up. You know that. Ada nodded. We made up a code when we were locked in closets. Couldn't talk. A silence deeper than snow fell. Jonas set down his spoon. Well, he said gently, maybe we keep that code going. Could be useful. Miles smiled faintly. After breakfast, the children helped with chores. Ada wiped down the counter. Elise swept the floor. Miles helped Jonas stack firewood. They worked without fuss, no dragging feet, no complaints. Just quiet motion. Jonas watched them, his heart twisting. That afternoon, he found an old quilt stitched with butterflies. It had belonged to his late wife. He laid it at the end of the girls' couch. Ada stared at it for a long time, then draped it over Elise and curled beneath it herself. That night, the fire crackled while the children whispered softly in their own language, half words, half breath. Jonas stared at the ceiling, the sound of 3 children breathing nearby, grounding him like a truth he'd waited his whole life to believe. The days that followed fell into rhythms now. Silence, soup, soft voices. It was a kind of healing Jonas had never seen before. They became a family, and none of them, not even Jonas, had expected it.